Bye, John.
Well, happening now, opening arguments have begun in the trial of former Penn State coach Jerry Sandusky. The lead prosecutor is showing jurors pictures of the alleged victims. Some of the accusations extremely graphic, in fact, so graphic that we're not going to detail them here. Sandusky is charged with sexually abusing 10 boys over the course of 15 years. He has consistently denied those allegations. Joining us now, former prosecutor Jason Friedman and defense attorney Chip Merlin. And gentlemen, this is really an interesting case to look at as far as the exercise of justice and how the process is done. And I'd like to start first with the jury. Again, it's a local jury, and those that are sitting on the jury right now, some of them include a Penn State ticket holder, a graduate of Penn State, a senior at Penn State, a current senior, a retired Penn State professor, and a current dance instructor there. And Jason, I'm just curious, how does this affect the case? I mean, what would your take be of this if you were the prosecutor?
You know, it's interesting. I really think the jury is as it should be, and that is representative of the community where this crime occurred and where it's being held. You really have a nice, diverse jury in terms of gender makeup. You have people who are working. You have people that are retired, a couple of students, as you mentioned. You have some people with children and grandchildren, some without. And I really think, as it should be, the jury is representative of the community. I think they did a good job of getting a nice cross-section of people that are hopefully going to be fair and impartial and be able to hear all the evidence.
And Chip, we should point out the defense and the prosecution do get to approve of those that are sitting, as part of this panel. But does this already set the grounds for an appeal before this case even begins?
Jenna, that's a great point. The defense did make a motion to have this transferred away from State College. The truth of the matter, this particular jury is a double-edged sword for the prosecution. The defense is going to try to show that Jerry Sandusky loved Penn State, and the fact that 8 of the 12 jurors and 2 of the 4 alternates have ties to Penn State. It's not just Jerry Sandusky, but the possibility that these accusers are going to bring civil actions against Penn State later for not overseeing Sandusky better. So it's Sandusky and Penn State versus all these accusers is how this might get set up based upon the selection of this jury.
A lot of these, the details of this case have already been out there. Again, they're just allegations at this time. Sandusky is innocent until proven guilty. However, what we are learning now are the names and some more information about some of the victims. We will not share the names, by the way, on the news. That's just a matter of policy. Victims, even alleged victims of sexual abuse, we will not share the names. But it was the judge's decision to make those victims come out in public. And I want to read what the judge had to say in his ruling on this. He said, no support in Pennsylvania law. There's no support in Pennsylvania law for offering anonymity to an adult witness because the witness is one of a class of victims of a particular form of crime. While I will make every effort to be sensitive to the nature of the alleged victim's testimony, once the trial begins, the veil must be lifted. Jason, what do you think of that ruling?
I think it was the correct ruling. And listen, it's a very difficult area, no question about it, but the judge has to weigh some factors, and I think he came down on the right side. The bottom line is public trials are public proceedings. Our system of justice, we err in public, and we have our grievances heard in public. It really is what part of the very fabric of our society. The other thing to remember is these victims are no longer children, and you have to look at the policy in terms of who you're looking to protect here. Mr. Sandusky does have the right to face his accusers and have them identified in court.
You know, Chip, they may be adults now, but the prosecution, as we're reading some of the opening arguments today, is showing the pictures of them as children and giving the background story to the jury right away. As a defense attorney, how do you approach this, a case like this where there are so many alleged victims and the jury is meeting them first as young boys and then now as adults?
Well, the defense is going to have to attack the credibility. In sexual accusation cases, the credibility of the accuser is the paramount of everything that goes on in a case like this. The problem for the defense is not just one accuser. There are multiple accusers that are now adults, and most of the time children have a very difficult time bringing these matters up. It's much more common that they bring them up as adults. That's what the prosecution is going to try to pin the case on. It's the quantity of the evidence, while the defense is going to have to try to attack every single one of these adults, and they have a big burden to do so in this particular case.
Well, the trial is supposed to be about 3 weeks long, so we'll have the prosecution side, of course, first, and the defense, and we'll have you both back to talk more about the strategy of this. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
For more
Thanks, Jenna.
coverage of the trial, plus the latest updates, log on to foxnews.com.